That better?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Cool. Okay. So as we have quite a few people on, we will get started. So welcome everyone to the April 2021 Marketo Engage Champion Office Hours. I can't believe it's April already. So thank you everyone for joining. Like I said, I think we've got about 20-ish people on so far. If you obviously have any questions while we're going through this, pop them into the chat. I will be keeping an eye on the chat and making sure that all of our champs have some really good questions to answer. Before we get started, just a couple of house meeting things to worry about. Make sure you're aware that obviously everything is being recorded, the meeting has been recorded, and then we can share this afterwards on the mugs.marketo.com. So if you do have any questions, anything you're stuck on, if you miss anything, if you have to hop up early or join in halfway through, that's all fine. As I said previously, if you do have any questions, make sure you put them into just the chat box. Just put it to everyone, because then I'll be able to see it and can obviously ask the questions as and when we get some space. If you are posting anything on social media, sharing anything on LinkedIn, etc., just make sure you use our standard hashtag of Marketing Nation. The next thing obviously to remember is we do have Adobe Summit coming up very, very soon. In fact, it is in just over a week. Or just under a week. So make sure you are signed up. It's a free registration. It's all virtual again, unfortunately, as it has been for the last couple of years. Hopefully next year we will be in person, because that would be really nice. But if not, like I said, go on summit.adobe.com. You can go and register. You can pick all your sessions. Check out all of the Marketo Engage sessions that are coming up. There's lots of champ sessions, some really, really good information going to be out there. So get signed up. And then the next thing is that we do also have the Adobe Experience Makers Award. You can apply to basically try and be awarded one of these kind of really cool awards. Chelsea won the Ambassador of the Year last year, Chelsea Kiko, or Catch, as she's now just been married. This is a really cool event. You get to tune in live and see what's happening. All of the nominees get to appear on screen. You get to find out about them. And then hopefully we get to find out who's winning some of those cool awards as well. So you can apply on adobeexperienceawards.com. You can see previous winners on there as well. You can see the types of applications, like the things they wrote about, and some blogs out there as well. So lots of really cool information. If you or your team want to get recognized for the work that you have been doing, this is the place to do it. So make sure you get online and apply as soon as possible. So let's hop into who our panelists are. As I said, my name is Jules James. I'm going to be your moderator for today. I'm going to pass around to each one of our panelists. And just as you're doing the intro, kind of who you are, what your experience is, just going to give a quick, is there a particular summit session that you are looking forward to? Because I know that some of us have looked at the calendar, not all of us have. So just let me know what you think is a good session. So I'm going to start with Chloe.
Oh man, as I was like quickly looking at my agenda to see which session to pick. I'm Chloe Pott. I am a senior marketing operations manager at Datadog. I've been using Marketo for about 10 years. I am a third-time Marketo champion and the co-leader of the European Marketo user group. And I would say so I'm not speaking at Summit this year, but I think I'm looking forward to, there's a centralized versus decentralized session that I know triggers a lot of people, but I just can't, it's just such a great one. I can't get over it. Every year I watch that one.
It's going to be a fun one. Awesome. Thank you. Brittany. Oh, where did Brittany
go? Everyone, I'm Brittany Young. I am a marketing automation specialist at McKesson. I've been using Marketo going on 5 years now. And I think I'm looking forward. There's one about demand generation during COVID-19. I'm looking forward to that session.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you. Chris, let's go up to you.
Hey, everybody. My name is Chris Wilcox. I'm Digital Marketing Director and Automation at Hartford Funds, financial services industry firm. And I have not yet looked at the catalog, but I definitely am always a big fan of Sneaks. And I'm pretty sure, who is the guy who's doing Sneaks this year?
Is it Dan Levy?
It is Dan Levy. Yeah. So yeah. Obviously I'll be sure to be on that because he's the best. And that's always a good one.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you. And last but not least, Rico.
Hi, I'm Enrico De Leon, two-time champ out of Dallas, Texas. I am currently something at a company yet to be determined. But yeah, but in terms of Summit, as I typically do, I've been using Marketo for 7 years. For me, I'm just always seeking to be soaking in the Summit in general. So I just try to absorb as much as I can, sort of like the actual Summit experience. And frankly, I haven't had a chance to look at the calendar yet either, or the agenda yet either. So open to everything.
Awesome. Yeah, and there are like, I know that Amy's just been putting in the chat like the sessions that we've mentioned as well, and where you can go and register. So make sure you get on there. Like I said, it's in about, I think it's in 6 days. So it's coming up fairly quickly. So let's hop straight into some questions. That's why I've stopped sharing my screen, because obviously everyone can then chat. If any of the champs do want to share their screen, if they want to show something in an instance, I believe, Chloe, did you say you managed to log into the champ instance? Or Chris?
I forgot my password and I'm still trying to reset it.
I'm in there if we need it.
Cool, if we need to.
Okay.
Perfect. So we have some questions that were submitted as part of the registration process. So we're going to start working through some of those. Obviously, if you do have any more questions, feel free to put them in the chat as well. But let's kick off with the first question that we have around email deliverability improvement strategies. I'm going to pass this one off to Chloe because I believe she had a recent VMUG on this.
Yes, we did. Our last European VMUG that we held in about a month ago in March, we had a guest speaker, Lauren Mayer, on the call with us, and it was everything about email deliverability. And Warren and I picked this topic because it's actually one of those topics that you don't hear a lot about. Being a marketing ops professional, there's a lot of the lead scoring and implementation and APIs and all those more technical things. And then sometimes we just want to take it back to the basics. And so we did that. And so first of all, go take a look at the recording. It's on the YouTube channel. Amy, if you could put a link to perfect. The link to the recording in there. But there are some of the main factors to be aware of, first of all, is that there's a difference between delivery rates and deliverability. And that's something to keep in mind when you're looking at how your emails are functioning. But some of the main factors also to keep in mind is your instance on a shared IP or a dedicated IP? What's your domain reputation like? How is your database being managed? Are you uploading lists left and right? What's the opt-in policy and your acquisition sources? And then also, you do need to keep in mind your subject lines, your content, your call to actions. One thing I like to remember is one email should be one call to action. There shouldn't be, unless it's a newsletter, of course, but your purpose in your email should just be one thing that you want to get the person to click on. And one thing that I was surprised to learn, because I learn something new every day in this role, is that something that can have a massive impact on your deliverability is actually if people are flagging your emails as spam complaints or blocking them as spam. It's so much worse than people just unsubscribing. People frequently mark emails as spam when they're unable to unsubscribe. So make sure that you have your corporate, your unsubscribe link and your preference centers in the footer of all your emails. Because if someone can't easily go in there and unsubscribe, they're going to mark you as spam, and that spam notification is going to affect you much more than just getting people to unsubscribe. Think of unsubscribes as actually good. They're good for your database because the people say, I don't want to hear from you, and so they unsubscribe. But if they declare you as spam, that could negatively impact your sender reputation, and that is a very difficult deep hole to get out of.
Yeah. Awesome.
Can I add on to that? Is that cool?
Yeah.
The only thing I'd add is agree 100% with all of that. The only other thing I'll just mention is like data hygiene of your database, just in general, of if people haven't opened an email or had a conversation with one of your sales folks or done any of the things that like means there's like, someone with a heartbeat on the other end of that email address, you should be regularly pruning or pausing those people or deleting them or marking them as invalid or whatever, because like spam traps exist. These companies out there buy up emails and they set them up that if you email it, well, we haven't opened or responded on anything in a long time. And that'll get you on one of those sender lists too of, these people are spammers or, whatever. And again, it's an uphill battle once you're on one of those lists. So, regular data hygiene of your, it's happened to me. I mean, regular hygiene though is part of the ongoing process. So we have like an inactivity type of thing, right? We're sending emails, are still technically valid, but they haven't opened, they haven't clicked, et cetera. There's lots of conversations on community about that too.
Awesome. That's cool. And yeah, always data hygiene, like we talk about it all the time. It's such an important strategy to have. Awesome. Okay, so next question. This one's for Chris. What's the best way to add snippets in our emails if we don't use Marketo's email template, like the drag and drop, and if there's no module where I can replace that with the snippet?
Right. So I saw that question come in, and the answer is you can. But basically the reason why I wanted to take that question is the real answer is using Velocity. So basically, Velocity scripting, it's a coding language that you can use to generate, HTML content. It doesn't necessarily have to be HTML content, but whatever, some kind of output that you could use to do your dynamic content. Then that person you could use those snippets almost to show or hide different modules. There's some work to be done there. But the answer, if you're not working in a Marketo template that doesn't have like your elements coded out, so you can't do like a replace with a snippet and drop something in, you pretty much have to rely on Velocity scripting in terms of using dynamic content as the way like snippets work, if that makes sense. But I'll put it in the chat in a second. I'll go find it. I wrote like an intro primer to Velocity scripting that'll kind of introduce you to what it is and how it works and why you might use it. Because if it's kind of hard and fast, you can't use and migrate into like a real template environment, then if you need to do dynamic content kind of at scale, Velocity is going to be the way to do it. It is technical in nature. It is not the scariest thing in the world. So I'll send some resources. I'll put them in the chat here. But that's really the answer, is to kind of get working with some Velocity scripting, unless anybody else here has thoughts there.
It's always been in a template, like the whole replace.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, trying to put the snippet stuff into Velocity is just, yeah. Velocity can be really easy. It can be really complicated as well. So yeah, that's definitely a
right.
Either see if there's a way that you can just have one module in your email, or just something to be able to put that in if you want to be able to use dynamic snippets. If not, yeah, you've got to look down other routes.
Yeah, basically you're coding those snippets in HTML and then writing rules to show when you show module 1 versus 2 versus 3, and you're doing that all in code. Versus if you do it in the snippets and in that you're working in the WYSIWYG, it's human friendly, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, awesome, cool, thank you. So I'm going to hop to another one. Again, any questions that you have, feel free to pop them in the chat. I'm keeping an eye on both places as well. But one for Brittany. So it's from Jared. It says, is there a step-by-step walkthrough on how to set up Marketo Munchkin script on cross-domain single-page applications? For example, this is quite a long one. Our customers will interact on our hotel store and then conduct a search on our cruise store. We see the majority of people who click email links are not getting tracked in Marketo, and myself and our developers can't figure out why. Brittany, do you want to take that one?
Yeah. So the short answer is one is you won't be able to use the standard Marketo Munchkin script. At my company, we're currently working on a project with the outside vendor for this right now. And basically we turn off the default Munchkin tracker, and the partner we hired, they're helping us build a custom Munchkin script that's being added to all of our pages through, I think we're using Google Tag Manager to add it to all of the landing pages. So I wouldn't say there's not a step-by-step guide that I know of right now. And it is really technical, and it probably would be best if you can to find a partner to help guide you with that.
Awesome. Yeah, anything where it comes to do with script and tracking and Munchkin, it again can get pretty complicated pretty quickly. Like you can put two Marketo, like Munchkin scripts on one page if you've got two different instances, but doing around the other way onto multiple domains, it can get a little bit messy. I mean, I know we've got Munchkin on 5 different places, and it's tracking all of those different places. But with the different, you've got single domain applications, that's where it gets more complex. So another question actually just popped in from Michael. Is there a best practice to archiving campaigns? Does anyone want to take that one?
I love archiving.
Go on then, Chloe.
I mean, I don't know if this is considered a best practice, but I am a big fan of cleaning and archiving. It's like something that it's just so relaxing for me. I think it depends on campaign type. If it's like an evergreen, ongoing resource that's constantly gathering leads, then there's no use in archiving it because you need those triggers and smart campaigns up and running. But for example, an event, a virtual event, a webinar, once the event is over and you're done, I typically archive it as soon as it's done. It depends. I know that once you are and create an official like archived folder, you can't access those forms or the lists for any reporting. In terms of best practices, I know there are some companies that do it like every 6 months so that they can keep the past event campaigns, programs active per se in reporting for 6 months, and then they'll go through every 6 months and archive. What do the others think?
I would say I typically, for ones that I know are like a one and done, I might leave it. I've left things as long as a year. Like I definitely do an annual cleanup, and then I'll check in probably after 6 months too. So maybe, you know, twice a year, just looking, trying to keep everything clean the way Chloe had mentioned. But I wouldn't let it go past that. If it's more than a year old and it's not something that's currently being used, the chances we're going to use it again are slim to none. So there's really no point of it staying active.
Yeah. And one thing to remember when you're archiving is Marketo has its automatic cleanup. It's like this: if this campaign hasn't been modified or used in the past 6 months, it will do that auto deactivate.
Right.
Moving something into an archive folder
Does not.
it's seen as an action. So if you're going to do that, you need to make sure you turn off that campaign before you move it, because Marketo sees that as an action. So when it does its normal 6 month cleanup, it will not archive if you've moved it into your archive in that previous 6 months. So just something to I think I only learned that a few months ago.
I didn't know that. That's news to me. Right. Now I got to go check my archive folders for active programs.
Turn everything off before you archive them.
Yeah.
Because Marketo will do it for you.
Another great tip is if you have a bunch of smart campaigns or like active trigger campaigns, if you go to Sky, you can mass deactivate them on each program, which is super helpful.
Can we still get to Sky?
Yeah, you can still get to Sky. They haven't killed it yet.
Yeah,
that's a good tip.
Awesome. That's a really good one. So I have one for Rico. What's the best way to set up campaigns when using UTM parameters on global forms?
That's a loaded question, and I wanted to get some clarification on that question, because are we talking about the operational campaign after you've captured the UTM parameters?
I think the way I read it was how to actually capture the UTMs on the form, and like in a global campaign, in a global form, can we pull that into a campaign, like fills out form on this page with this query string, or how do we capture it on the form?
Okay, because there's a number of different ways to do it. So the first part, and I'm going to go through some of the foundational stuff really quickly. First is double checking to make sure that the UTM fields that you need are already there. Just go into field management and making sure that you don't have any crossover, you don't have any redundant fields. And then within the form itself, the global form, you would drag that over and then select the field type, or I'm forgetting right off the top of my head, to hidden.
Yep.
And then you
field
would
type,
and then you would edit the autofill values and then leave the default as either none or blank. What's the is it null in this instance?
Yeah, you just leave it blank.
And then change it to, I think it's a parameter is what you would pull forward. So that's how you would normally do that. So after you've double checked and seen what UTM fields you're trying to pull over, that's how you would drag each one of those individually. And then default value, leave it blank, and then the URL parameter. In terms of the campaign itself, this is why it became a rabbit hole for me, is because when you're searching for those values and when they're changing in the campaign that you're building, it would be helpful if you could build that all into one global operation campaign. Where I've run into issues with that is some of the crossover in timing. I've had times where those field values don't pass through because you have all of these. If you're using a central operations program or folder, they start to butt heads. So it's just understanding the timing. But yeah, from there you would select those forms when they get updated, fill that in. And then that's really it. The real strategy or the real secret sauce is just ensuring that those values are passing properly, not only to Marketo, but to the CRM that you're connected to. Did I go through too quickly on that?
No, I think it was good. And the other thing I think, because we were talking about this beforehand, was like, make sure you have your naming convention correct. So if you're putting your URL parameter or UTM parameters, UTM_source with little lowercase UTM and lowercase s and all that kind of stuff, make sure that you spell UTM_source one correctly, because I've spelled source with the U's and the R's and everything all around the wrong place before. It's not going to capture. And then just be consistent in what you want that to look like. So does your source match your actual list of lead sources, or are you going to do it in another way? How does your medium work? So a strategy I've done is I've actually built out a UTM list of like, these are all the sources you can use. These are all the mediums you can use. The campaign, depending on where you are, I've used companies who have the campaign as the campaign ID in Salesforce. So when it passes through into Salesforce, you can literally just click the ID and it populates straight with the campaign information. You can go to campaign, or do you have your own set of UTM builders that have its own set of campaign IDs that you need to build out? So make sure it's just consistent for tracking across the board as well.
Yeah, just a couple of pieces real quickly on that too. In terms of that, a lot of it is your homework, doing your homework before you actually activate and test. But stupid things like if source equals website, make sure it's website and not web space site, because then that throws off all your metrics and reporting. So that's the first one. The second, and I think we were calling this ghost knowledge, is one of the things that you can also do to make sure that those things are being, the UTM parameters are being passed, is testing it with those fields unhidden, not on the global, but, and then see, just creating sort of like a link that has your UTM parameters filled out and then seeing if it populates while you're in incognito. So that's a way to check it out.
That's a good one. That's a good testing one. Okay, awesome. Just seen another one pop in from Haley. It says, we have some campaigns with really long wait steps of months, and I recently heard this could cause performance issues. Would you be able to speak to whether this is something to be wary of? Anyone want to talk to month-long wait steps?
That scares me.
I know. I read that and was like, no.
But
why did it scare you? Go on.
Well, it just scares me. I mean, to me, wait steps can get tricky just because there's a lot of things that can happen while contacts are in wait steps. For example, if you modify, if wait step is number 2 and you guys decide to reorder things, if you're going to put something before the wait step, well, people who are in wait step 2 are going to continue into whatever wait step number 3 is when they exit that wait step. So even if it's a new number 3, it's not what they went into at the beginning. So like, it just creates challenges for managing. If it's a really simple global campaign that's like, hey, we want to make sure we talk to these people every 6 months, and it's add them, wait 6 months, do something, and that's a pretty standard, it's not going to change. That doesn't scare me. But if it's something that's living and breathing in terms of how we're managing leads, targeting leads, to whatever it may be, there's some implications of like how you can and can't change those flow steps because there's these huge wait steps in there, right? Like I'd almost switch a wait step to like a minute if I wanted to get rid of it instead of deleting it, because there's implications for everyone that's still in the wait step. So there's like weird things like that with wait steps. I don't like wait steps. I try to avoid them, but I get it. They're a necessary evil. I most definitely have dozens of campaigns with wait steps. So I hear that. What else? I've never done one that long. I don't know about you guys.
I just saw Brittany, did you? Yeah.
I was almost wondering like if Haley could speak to the use case, because it almost seems like maybe a better approach would be, depending on what the use case is, but I'm just thinking like if you needed only a certain people to wait till a certain time, like maybe they could be added to a list.
Right.
Yeah, and use like request campaign or some other trigger or something besides that. I guess I would, yeah.
Or date stamping them. Like that to me is one, like if we want to do something 6 months from today and we want that length of time will maybe change over time, you could stamp their record with a custom field that says today's date or today's date plus 6 months. And then you trigger off of that date and you don't have a wait step anymore, right? Like that to me that's how I would approach that if it was that long. But
that sounds like the most reliable
yeah.
way to do it. I mean, you could add someone to a list and then, like Brittany said, do the request campaign after someone's been added to a list after a certain amount of time. But then there's all those like that filter logic of if they were added to the list on a date after or before.
Right.
In past before.
After, in past before.
On after
whatever.
before, but is not.
Yeah.
I like the date stamping idea.
Yeah. I like that idea too. We just set it up in a way that we felt it was intuitive to start, which was, add wait steps. We support students all the way through 4 years of bachelor's degrees oftentimes. And in this case, oftentimes we want to send surveys every 6 months. So we created like a really long program. But I love the idea about adding in some new date fields potentially.
You could do a field
is it a drip
like
campaign? Is that the idea?
Sent date.
Mm-hmm. We did set it up as a drip campaign.
Because like if you have different people, well, never mind. I'm going too deep on your like if it's you want to follow them through their 4 years. So I'm halfway through year 1, you're halfway through year 2, so we're getting different emails. Like to me, that just says segmentation, based on a creation date or whenever they start date, and you just create a segmentation and you just run a batch every 6 months, and everyone that's in whatever phase of their segmentation could get that message. No wait steps. Doesn't have to be a drip campaign. If you want to measure it as a drip, I get that, but that's where my head goes on that one.
I love that. Thank you for all the tips.
Yep.
That's what we're here for. Awesome. So there was actually another one about UTMs, which I missed, that came in earlier, which is for Brittany. So it's kind of similar question, but is there a way to have a hidden field on a form where we can transfer a cookie variable, such as obviously UTMs, essentially would capture the link and be able to tell us which campaign specifically someone came from. So it kind of plays into what we just spoke about, the hidden fields, but you mentioned something specifically about the cookie values.
Yes, I just recently did this too. So if you are wanting to have that specific UTM value, it would be a hidden field on your form. Like if you've already created custom fields for your UTMs, and then when you go to the actual settings for that field, there's a place where you could choose where to get the value from, and you want to do get cookie value. And for your parameter, whatever, I'm not sure which system, like if you're using Google Analytics, whatever parameter that you're identifying in that system, that's what you'll put in that space. I could try to see if I can get a screenshot to show you exactly what I mean, but that is possible.
Awesome, perfect. So yeah, I just as I was scrolling through all of our previously submitted questions, that one popped up as well, but that's great. So we just have had another one submitted. This is to do with Marketo landing pages. We have from Kevin, we have a multi-registration page, and we're looking to display the selected options that were selected on the, I'm assuming selected on the form on the thank you page. Let me, hopefully I got that correct. How do we access the database attributes on the thank you page? So how do we show what someone selected on the form on the thank you page based on what was selected on the form when they registered? Does that make sense? I've done it in emails with velocity.
Yeah, in emails it's velocity, right? But yeah, on the landing page, you'd probably have to write something, to be honest. I mean, I'm thinking about it. Brittany, did you have something?
My first thought was, because you're wanting to see which option they selected. Yeah. Would that be done? I was wondering if you could use a token based on what they put in that field and put that token, like, thank you for, whatever. You
would probably have to use just velocity scripts on the landing page.
I don't know if they execute on landing pages, do they? Yeah, I don't think they do. I think they only execute on emails during when it goes through the compiler coming out of the send engine. But you probably, frankly, would have to, it'd be the same script you'd write for velocity, but you'd write it in actual Java. right?
Yeah.
So you basically ping the database, like you said, Brittany, reference the fields they selected, and then have a snippet of content that, hey, when field 1, which means they registered for topic 1 equals true, show this block of HTML. If it's false, skip, and you basically go through that kind of logic, but pretty sure you just got to code it. I mean, I don't know if we can, I don't use the, what's the personalization element from Marketo? I don't use that.
RTP.
Yeah, RTP. I'm sure there's an opportunity with RTP, but I'm not familiar with the tool.
Yeah, that's all based on segments. So possibly based on the segments that they're in, but you can only be in one segment at a time. So I'm not sure if that would work either. But yeah, that's definitely a complex one, and I don't think there's an easy answer to it. I'm sorry, Kevin. So one from Paige. Does anyone have any scenarios that have been successful for personalized nurture campaigns based on behavior? I'm looking for any ideas and inspirations. I'm sure we've all done lots of fun things with nurtures. Anyone? If not, I've got some tips. But
I have some. I didn't want to jump in. I feel like I'm talking too much.
Jump in.
What we do, I mean, what I've done in the past is we've queued up content based on, like, we use actually tags in Marketo to classify content type and then kind of subtypes within that. And we'll actually group engagement on our website by like whatever the content type or subtype is. And then we actually have content. We have like a bunch of nurtures that are set up that are all just content driven. And if somebody engages with a particular content type, i.e., they download a piece, they go to a webinar, they engage with an email, or they are on our website, in any of that content type, they get added into that nurture. So we kind of give them more of what they've kind of raised their hand and that they have interest in. But it's just all about homework. Like, it's all just how many content types, how are we grouping content? How are we kind of feeding people into each of those? And we kind of have this, like, we call it the air traffic controller that kind of determines who goes where based on all the engagement that happens over time, if that makes sense, conceptually at least. It's all smart campaigns and request campaigns in execution.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lots of, I've done ones with basically moving them between streams based on behavior. So having like a generic stream that is very, very simple, like the about us, who we are stream, and then based on what they're clicking in the emails or what they're engaging with, moving them to product specific streams.
Mm-hmm.
So just doing those transitions based on behaviors has had a really, really good success rate, because if they click on the general one and they're looking at this particular product and then they suddenly start receiving content about that product, the engagement rates kind of went up through the roof. So that's always a good thing to think about, is not necessarily just even getting them into nurture, but when they're in the nurture, how you can transition them between different places as well. Okay, awesome. Just scrolling through. Zach just had some good feedback about the thank you page, and he's just put a link up for using the on-success callback script. So yeah, it's going to be a script that you need to look at writing. For who asked that question? So another one we had come in, which was a good one, was more about kind of careers. So I'm going to hand this one over to Rico. So it was, what recommendations do you have for career advice? Not only for people starting off in Marketo or marketing automation, but also for seasoned veterans looking to make a career move into roles such as director type roles. We've gone technical, let's go career.
Yeah, that's actually become quite a topic of contention, especially when you're looking at it from a moving up and progressing in your career in that director level. What I want to do is I definitely want to plug the Silicon Valley Mode, because they're doing a series of just the different career points. I think there's 6 in this series, and we just did the first one last week, but it's talking about that progression. I think it's Jess Cow and Max, I forget his last name, both speaking to that. The other couple of things, I'm in that scenario right now myself. So a couple of things, especially that's useful for in between, even beginners and even people mid-career. I was utilizing a website called themuse.com to give myself like tips and seed questions. And because sometimes you just don't get that, or you can't, extract that from the job descriptions that you probably see. The other thing is leaning on your network is extremely valuable, especially in the world of, Marketo Engage and marketing automation platforms. I'm not sure if we're allowed to plug, but, the MOPS Pros Slack has just constantly a list of available positions. And I cannot stress how important network is. Even if you jump on Meetup, and if you're involved in any mugs, just really reaching out and seeing, I will say everybody on this call has been really helpful with, giving me job updates or job opportunities. Second, there's a book that's probably 20 years old at this point, but I've used this time and time again. It's a book called 60 Seconds and You're Hired. And the whole process of that short book is basically to develop an elevator speech that's 60 seconds so that you can speak concisely about what you do. And then pivoting that to that list of seed questions you may find from the Muse or any other job search sites, and really putting that 60-second elevator speech approach to behavioral and situational questions. And then keeping in mind that whole STAR process. So every time you answer that interview question, you want to speak to the scenario, the task involved, the actions that you took, and the results. Every answer has to have that STAR, because you will be able to really sell yourself in that process. And then, of course, maybe not even just job hunting or job progression, but even if you have work currently, find yourself either mentors or mentees, people to mentor to, because that process of that not only opens you up for your network, but it also keeps your skills sharp, especially when you're trying to progress forward in your career. Hope that wasn't too high level.
No, that was really helpful. And I think everyone who works in MOPS, we may not necessarily, MOPS teams aren't always big. So we may be fairly small, lean teams, and there may just be one or two of us. And so being able to move into like a director level role that may have a team of people is always that complicated path of how do I show that I've got the people management skills to get up to that level. But if you are doing things like being a mentor or a mentee, working with user groups, like helping, even if you start doing some side hustles, contracting on the side to be able to manage groups of people that aren't necessarily the people in your organization or have those people management skills, they definitely help as well. The one thing I've learned through consulting is I'm dealing with teams of people on a regular basis. So it definitely helps with the management side of things if you're looking to move up those levels. Awesome, thank you. So let's go back to another technical one. This one is for Brittany. What's the best non-manual way for us to clean up our database from duplicates? Because Marketo only duplicates versus duplicates that exist in Salesforce, or duplicates versus duplicates that exist in Salesforce. Brittany, you got some suggestions?
Yeah, duplicates. We've had lots of issues with that. The simple answer is you'll need a tool. Like if you're not trying to do it manually, there's a lot of middleware out there, and then even more sophisticated platforms out there. We just happen to use Workato. That's not the only one, but that's what we're using to help us manage that.
Okay. Anyone else got experience with duplicates? I'm sure we all have.
Yeah, my Salesforce team deals with it.
Yeah, it's my last place, my last company. It was the sales ops team that dealt with it, and I think they used.
I hear good things about Ringlead.
Yeah,
but
that's what I was going to mention. Yeah, Ringlead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Ringlead is what I've used, and the beauty of Ringlead is it duplicates before even like when it gets into your system, it's like straight away it duplicates it or deduplicates it, and it can also do a mass deduplication update as well. And with Ringlead, you can do lots of filters and constraints and make sure you're picking the right things that you're deduplicating. Not saying Ringlead is the only one; there are lots of others, but yeah, definitely there is no, unless you want to do it manually. There are lots of third-party tools. So was it what did you say, Workato?
Yeah, Workato is what we recently got to help us with that. And it's similar with some of the things in Ringlead with creating different workflows that'll say, if this duplicate is found, and you put your rules in and all of that. So
awesome. Yeah, Ringlead, Lean Data, Workato. There's definitely lots of options outside of Marketo. I'm doing it manually. Cool. Okay, so Chloe. Question came in that was talking about what's the most creative task that you've been able to achieve using Marketo?
Oh yeah, there's so many, but one that I learned recently. I mean, I've been using Marketo for years, and this is one that I probably learned maybe a year or two ago, which I've been using ever since. Is there's a feature that allows you to send an email like to a random group of people. So the use case that I had at my last company is that when demo requests would come in from our website, we would randomly assign them to our group of BDRs. And rather than, I mean, there was no easy way to do it. And then I learned that there was this send random sample. So you can send an email, and one of the choices in the email send is random sample, and you put the percentage. If you have a team of 3 BDRs, you would put 33. Random sample is 33. And then you do it again, add choice 2, random sample is 33. And it will randomly assign the lead or send an email to as like a round robin feature. And I find that genius. And I've been proud of implementing that at every place that I go to nowadays.
Hey, I have a question actually on that maybe you can answer.
Mm-hmm.
If you stack 2 flow steps and they both use random sample, will it grab the same random sample from step 1 to step 2? It's random each time, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm just making sure I'm not losing my mind as I build some of these things. Thank you. That's a good one.
Yeah. Has anyone else got any creative tasks that they have shocked themselves with, or kind of was today years old when you learned how to do something recently?
Gosh, I have another one that I actually learned like 10 days ago.
Go on.
I didn't know you could reorder choices in flow steps. There's a little green arrow next to choice 1, choice 2.
Oh yeah.
And I always had to think about what are all my, like, I had to think what order to put them in before I started adding them.
Yeah.
And then someone told me, you can move it around with that little green arrow. And I was like, that's what that arrow is for.
That arrow is genius. Like, I use it if I'm adding things, and then always just like pop it to the bottom, because you can guarantee when you add things, like you add something and go, oh, hang on, I also need to do this or this or this, and I just add it to the top, drop it to the bottom, add it to the top, drop it to the bottom. Like, it's the best little, especially when you've got big flows. I had one yesterday that was like 35, 36 different choice steps.
Yeah, I have like a 60. Yeah, it's awful.
Geez. Yeah,
it's awful. There's one of them, but yeah, if I didn't know I could reorder them, I wouldn't have done it. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't have made it because it's impossible.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity for this group, at least, what's the fine line between being creative and just MacGyvering something?
I think it's the same line.
Yeah, so I don't think there is a line.
In Marketo, it's the same line.
Because I got plenty of creative scenarios, but a lot of them are like really specific to the organization, and it's usually creativity is being bred out of like a fire that you have to put out, and it's like, and then you just build something.
Figure out a way to get it to work.
Yeah.
But when you do find one that is replicatable, if that's such a word, like, document it, use it, make sure you have it in store for if you end up going somewhere else. Like, there's so many things that I've done in multiple instances that I can just do it once and know that it works. And I'm like, okay, this was a bit of a MacGyver, but I know that it's going to work. And as soon as someone asks me that question in another company, I'm like, I have that situation for you. Yes.
And
I'm
for you
curious
young
if
folk
anyone,
go ahead. Sorry.
I'm curious if anyone joining us today has a creative thing that they've done with Marketo recently that they are willing to share with us. Because I mean, I can speak for all of us that we learn something new every day working at Marketo.
Yeah, we do.
That's true.
And while we're waiting for any of those, if anyone does have situations or examples coming in, I have another question. Any suggestions from the group on where to learn the basics of creating send lists? Like, do you do it within Marketo? Do you do it within Salesforce? What suggestions do you have?
I mean, one that I had, like, if we're talking about email marketing sends, I'm a huge proponent of segmentations in Marketo. which segmentation is a way to make a mutually exclusive classification for a contact, right? Put them into one bucket of multiple choices based on whatever your criteria is. And like our team uses multiple segmentations, but like the one we're talking about email marketing is like who's marketable, who's emailable, right? Like off the top of the bat, like you can remove people whose emails are missing, their emails are invalid, they've unsubscribed, et cetera. So you can have like a clean baseline of, well, here's my entire pool of people who I know the firm can email, right? And then you can layer on your different targeting tactics on top of that. All of that's within, it depends on what kind of Marketo program you're working within, but if you're like in the email program, email send program type, it's in the smart list, right? For the campaign, first you'd add your segmentation value. Hey, for emailable segmentation equals emailable. Then you put in whatever your additional targeting there is on top of that, which can use any data in your database, the company they work for, if you have the vertical that they operate within, if you have, are they a customer or not? It depends on whatever you're sending and who you're trying to send it to, but pretty much all that's pretty fluid, right within the kind of the smart lists inside either your default or your email sending programs in Marketo. What is it? What do other people have to say? I would just recommend those emailable segmentations off the bat. It's like you can't mess up.
I'm just going to retweet and co-sign that, because if you get into if your MO becomes creating these lists ad hoc for all of your email programs, it's not scalable, and you're gonna double, if not triple, the time it takes for you to even build or clone a campaign. Like I think it nullifies cloning, because you got to go back into the list parameters and update that every time. Where if you start from that good baseline using segmentation, then you could do your tweaks, and usually it'll be like one or two tweaks, like this region. And even then you could arguably create region segmentation as well.
That's what we actually do. Our segmentations are deeper than just emailable, not. It's emailable within target audience A, B, C through whatever, through Z, right? Because then our marketers who are actually using the platform on a day-to-day basis, sending content, they go in, they grab one filter, who's emailable in my audience today? And that's it. And they can send. They don't have to worry about that. The MOPS team basically does that.
So Chris, in your marketable segmentation, you have not just like unsubscribed market, like opted in market. Well, you have then broken down by region within the same segmentation.
That's right.
Oh.
You could make two. You could have one that puts emailable or not into region, and then layer on emailable or not, and use two segmentations. Hey, who's emailable and also is in region A or whatever.
But if you're limited to 20 segmentations, then you might as well
combine them.
Add region into.
As long as like there's an exponential element there. If you want to have more than just one attribute, you got to now combine every combination of those, which becomes a multiple, right? But so long as you're not trying to go super deep with that, like if it's by, I don't know, if you operate in 5 different verticals, and then like an all other, you could make 6 emailable, values of a segmentation, and there you go. We aligned that around the way our marketers organize themselves. So like we looked at how do we market from a targeting and messaging perspective first, and then pivoted to how do we organize, and make it as easy as possible for those groups to find and target those contacts. So look inward to your, to whatever your company's doing. At least that's my perspective there.
Mm-hmm.
We have a small team though. If you're working in a huge team, it's probably not that usable. So I get it.
And I'm sorry to hone in on the question. The basics of creating those send lists. We're talking about segmentation, so the best place to start is actually Marketo Docs with that, and it'll teach you those that concept.
Right. There's like we talked beforehand. There's like a core concept. If you're brand new to marketing automation, an email marketing platform, to Marketo, there's this, what's it called? I forget what they renamed it. You guys said it earlier and I forgot the name of it.
Core concepts.
Core concepts is, I took that when I first started Marketo. I think many others on the call had agreed they took it too. Walks you through how do you make an email, how do you make a smart list, like the real basics of getting in and using the platform. There is that whole strategic element though too, which is more what I was getting at. But Rico's right. The documentation, looking at the actual training materials is probably your best part. Yeah.
And I just popped a link in as well. There's universityonline.marketo.com, which also gives free training. You can actually walk through the fundamentals of automation all the way through to how to build it in Marketo. It's a simulated instance. It's really cool, which also plays into one of our other questions we had about how do you get started on Visible. They have Visible training on there as well for free. So definitely go on there if you want to do any of the basics. I'm actually about to go and start doing that Visible training because I want to learn Visible. So that's the first place I'm going to go, and then figure out versus the Visible user groups, the community, etc., where else I can learn all that information from. So I'm just going to go to one last question because we only have just a few minutes left, which actually came in from Anthony, and I think Brittany has a good response for this one. So at my company, we don't use Marketo. We don't use a Marketo form for our webinar registrations. It's a form associated with our CRM and not ideal. Therefore, we can't process the Munchkin code needed to track people's website activities unless they fill out another Marketo form on our website, which we do have. I heard there is a way to pass a Marketo form in the background to process Munchkin. Has anyone had success with this? And do you have any specific information about how you accomplish this?
Yes, I'm going to post the link because that's probably the easiest and quickest way for you to see that. That has all the information on how to do that. But the answer is yes, it is possible.
Yeah, and just be careful, like if you're doing that. I don't know if you're ever doing any work with APIs and stuff and post forms. I believe Marketo are discontinuing the post HTTP forms, and they're moving to it has to be API calls now. There is I'll find the link. It was in their latest update, so you can use that. Just make sure it's not going to be affected by any of the API stuff that is changing in the next coming weeks.
Yeah, the associate lead command for whatever has been depreciated. You actually, I think the new method is using a form. So should be good. Yep. Good.
That's what, we had that come through. And I know I've got people who've been using the post version, or people who've just used the lead is push to list, or lead has come in from this. So there's lots of ways in which you can do it. But this is probably the best way. One very last question, because we literally have 4 minutes left. A question probably for post follow-up. A question for post follow-up. Thoughts on SMS marketing versus investing specifically in email marketing, so like in a push SMS. Anyone played around with that much? If not, I know we've only got 4 minutes.
I have right now. We recently we're still evaluating a couple of vendors for SMS. But I mean, it's a question which channel, like doing SMS versus email?
I think just thoughts on SMS, in-app push messaging versus emails after like a post follow-up.
Oh, for us, the reason we started doing SMS is just because we do a lot of COVID updates and stuff for pharmacists. And we definitely felt that if we had SMS, that would have been a better channel to quickly let pharmacists know when, the vaccine's available, any updates that are happening, because it's so real time and all happening so quickly. So I would say SMS probably is a better, more reaction. Try to, like, if you're trying to get a reaction right away, you would want to do SMS because people are more likely to respond than with email.
Awesome.
The only thing I'll layer on, which I haven't done SMS marketing in a few years just because of the space I'm in now, but I remember when we were doing it before, there was just a lot of rules. Like, just be careful about when you are allowed to SMS people, when you are not. There's like consent, things like that. It's just like email marketing. You need their consent. Lots of rules in that regard. So I agree, it's a super valuable channel. Just be mindful of, you can get in trouble.
Yeah, you can. And if you look up Twilio, I've used Twilio for some kind of pushes, like while events are happening, like the session is now live, that kind of stuff. Twilio actually has some really good documentation about what countries you can and can't do SMS pushes to. So I would definitely have a look on their website and other stuff as well. So, wow, we got through a lot in an hour. We've got through all of our registration questions. I think we got through all of our questions that came in through the chat as well. There were some more technical questions that came in through the registration that were definitely more probably focused on speaking to your Marketo CSM or the support teams. So if we didn't get through to your questions, that's probably why. Obviously, if you do have any questions, there are the Slack groups, there are Twitter, you can email the user groups, etc. If you do have anything else, obviously we have our next mug session coming up, our next champion office hours in May. So obviously any other questions, or reach out to any of us on social media. Let's say we have a couple of minutes left. So if anyone has any last minute questions, let us know. If not, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed everything that we went through today. We went through a lot in a very short period of time. Do not forget to sign up for Summit and go and pick some of those sessions and enjoy all of the information that's out there for everyone right now. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for joining.
See everyone popping off.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.